The first thing to put into consideration when looking for a post-secondary institution to study in Canada is if that institution or school you're going to apply to is in the PGWP, which is the Postgraduate Work Permit Program. Some people don't know that when you want to study in Canada, I know a lot of people want to maybe work after studying and then maybe get their permanent residents, but the thing is that not all schools in Canada are in the PGWP program or PGWP, which means that if you want to look for a school, you have a school in mind, first go to the IRCC website and see if that DLI is in the postgraduate work permit program, because if you go to a school that's not part of this program, you're not going to be able to work after study. So you just have to look for the next step for what to do after studying. I'm going to put a link to that website or to that page on the website on how to find or where to find the institutions that are in the postgraduate work permit program. You can look in the link in the description and you'll see there. The next thing you want to put into consideration is the province, is the city, or is the town where the university is in. Some people think that when applying to university, all they're looking at is the school fees on the website, and then they're like, oh, okay, that's all, we can afford this, and then that's all. But the thing is that in Canada, there are bills you have to pay every month. If you want to stay in campus, on the website of the school, they'll show you how much it is for accommodation or to stay in residence and how much the school fees is. So, but some put it in total. There's different ways that different schools put it. If you want to stay there, okay, that's there. But even if you're staying there, there's still phone bills you have to pay. There's still other bills that you have to pay for, and also transportation. If you're going to be moving from this place to this other place, how you're going to move from the residence you're staying off campus to school to work and so other places where you get your basic necessities from. So the thing you want to consider is expenses, not just school fees. School fees is also part, but the expenses that you put into your bills and your feeding and your transportation, everything like that. In different provinces, Canada is like a big country or a continent, I would say, that encompasses of different little countries, but it's still all called a country called Canada, because every province has their different rules and regulations and their different age of majorities, their different minimum wage, different things. So you want to put that into consideration. A lot of people most times want to go to Toronto, they want to go to Vancouver because they think, oh, those are the big cities and they can get a lot of jobs. Of course, I believe you can get a lot of jobs in those provinces, but the thing is that yes, minimum wage is higher there. It's far more expensive. The cost of living is far more expensive in places like Vancouver and Toronto compared to other places. So make sure it's everything. If you put everything together, you're able to, or the person sponsoring you is able to put in the finances to cover up all those expenses. Next thing you want to put into consideration is scholarships. There are scholarships in Canada, right? But some schools, they don't give you scholarships in the first year. Some give you in the second year, some give you in the third year, some give for this particular course and they don't give for this other course. And then there's some institutions in general, like non-profit organizations that offer scholarships and things like that. So you want to put that into account so that you don't have to, if you want to get a scholarship, it will be easier for you depending on the school or where you're staying. The next thing, I don't think it's that important, but I'll still add it, is weather. In Canada, there are different places and they have their different weathers. It's all generally the same or almost the same. Places like Vancouver right now are warmer than where I am, which is Brandon in Manitoba. Brandon is, I think right now it's really good today. It's around 7 degrees. In Vancouver, it's around 16 degrees Celsius. When you come and when you stay for a while, you get used to the weather. If it's too cold, you just buy a better jacket. If it's too cold for you to go out, you stay in. Unless you have to go to school, you might look for how to do that. But after some time, if you get your car, you get settled. Honestly, weather might not be a huge problem for you. Everything might be okay and everything would get in place. The next thing is school fees. If the school fees, sometimes a lot of schools will say this is the fee that they're offering or you're going to be paying, but with other side expenses that are not added to the fees. So when you're looking at the school fees, you also want to be looking at other expenses. There's some things that international students have to pay for, the healthcare. Some schools, books are not part of the school fees, so when you go there to the school, you have to buy your books separately. So, and books are like 200, 100, even sometimes up to almost $300. If it's the school fees is okay, just add, I would say add around $1,500 to $5,000 for your other school expenses. That's not even accommodation and everything. That's like school, the school resources and things you need for your academics. Another thing you have to put into consideration when looking for schools is if you have someone there in the place that you want to apply or you want to schooling. If you have a person, if you have someone in maybe, let's say, Newfoundland, or how do you pronounce it? Okay, let me just say another one. In Alberta, for example, and you want to school in Toronto, that's okay. A lot of people have gone and stayed on their own without someone being there. But if you're just coming and maybe you're going to the time when school is starting, will it be easier for you to start afresh and start looking for how to find everything? Or will it be better if you just stay with someone who you know, who can help you, advise you on how to get settled into the environment before you start school and everything like that? So having someone or a guardian or just someone you know is actually going to be very beneficial for you when you're coming in or looking for a school, a place to apply and try to get admission in while coming to Canada. Another thing is also the admission requirements. Some schools or different schools have their different admission requirements, but they usually have this basic thing that they all ask for. Most of them accept WAEC. So if you wrote your WAEC, that's good. Some might go further and ask you to write an SAT, ACT. They might ask you to write your IELTS. They might ask you to write another different just exam for the school and ask you for different things, your school transcript and everything like that. So you have all those things and you have all the requirements and it meets the cutoff mark, that's good. But if you don't, you still want to look into the admission requirements before just applying, because you should know that when you're applying to schools, you have to pay an application fee. So you don't want to just be spending $90, $100, $150 on just applying, and then your chances of getting into that institution is actually very slim or there's none at all. So put that into consideration when looking for a school or an institution to apply to in Canada. Another thing you have to look into if you're less than 18 is some schools have age requirements. Actually, some don't. Some have age requirements. Yeah, you have to be at the age of majority, because most times there are lots of things that they need from you to help in so that they can meet legal laws and policies. So they might need that from you to be of the age of 18, and they might also need some tests that you can't do if you're younger than 18, only up to 18. So you want to look into if the school actually does accept people less than 18. Some schools may say, oh, it's fine, it's good, but then they have all these other sideline things that require you to be up to the age of majority in the province you're staying in. Some provinces is 18, some provinces is 19 years old. So you want to look into that before applying to an institution in Canada. And another thing some people look into is the minimum wage of the province where they stay or where they want to schooling. And I'll say that's not really that important, because as I said earlier, or I didn't say, but I'll just put this into more context. Most times, the place or the province you're staying in, if the minimum wage is higher, the cost of living is higher. So it's almost the same everywhere. Like if the minimum wage is $13 here and you're earning $13, most times you might find an apartment for $1,000, which might be okay. That's 13 hours per hour. Oh. That's $13 per hour. And other provinces that may have $15 as their minimum wage. The lowest price, or the most affordable house for renting might be $1,500. So it's like almost the same thing. It's just inflated. So the higher the minimum wage, most times the higher the cost of living. So I wouldn't say put that into consideration, because every place has their system and the way things work. Another thing is also the language proficiency of the place you're staying in. I'll say this: most places in Canada, they speak English. Even in Montreal, they speak English. When I was coming to Canada, I came through Montreal before I traveled to Winnipeg, and they speak English in Montreal. It's just a dual linguistic, or it just has two languages. Most people speak both English and French. So you still want to study, if you speak English better, you want to study in a place that speaks English, because even though Montreal, they speak English and French, you don't know, some places may say, oh, they prefer more francophone speaking people than anglophone speaking people. So that might be a barrier for you. Just make sure you put language into your list of things that you need to know or you need to look into before applying to an institution in Canada. But most places speak English, so if you speak English, you'll be okay. You'll be alright. If you speak French too, you'll be alright. So either English or French, any other language, I don't know, you find your people in Canada, because in Canada there's like 90% of everyone is from different places all around the world. So, but just at least be able to speak English and French, like that. Another thing you want to put into consideration before applying to a school is the application deadline, or the application deadline. So a lot of schools, if you want to apply for the next year, maybe you want to apply for fall, that's September 2022, or 2020, or except from 2023, 2023, or 2024. Right now in November will be the best time for you to apply, because most times the application times for that, it usually starts around September and ends, some places September, some places starts October, November, and ends around January, February, March. So you want to look into the application deadlines and make sure you apply before the deadline, because you might think that, oh, you're going in September, so you apply in May. No, look very early. If you have a school in mind, look very early. Start looking at least a year before. If you're still in secondary school and you plan on studying in an institution, and you plan on studying in Canada, look into schools and start in your first term of SS2, SS3, so that you know admission requirements and the application deadlines, so that you don't miss your opportunity or you don't miss anything. You're just up to date and you're ready for anything that they may throw at you. Also, while applying to an institution or looking for a school, one thing you might also want to do is, while looking for the school and you're also looking at the application deadlines, make sure you have enough time, I'd say 3 to 6 months before the start of when your course or when the school is meant to begin, because sometimes you don't know, there's just unforeseen circumstances that can make your study permit, or make someone's study permit, the application stay longer than it's meant to, or it might even be faster than it is usually. So it varies from person to person, from application to application. So while applying, make sure you have enough time in between for you to apply for your study permit and get it approved before the start of your term, either winter or summer or fall, any term you are meant to start your studies. This is another thing some people look into, but I won't really say it's necessary. It's if people that are from the same country as you, or people that have the same culture as you, if there are a lot of those people in that province. The thing I'll say, you don't really need to look into it, because a lot of the people that are already there, they didn't even look. So it started from one person relocating first, then more people started relocating. So you can actually just consider the school first. But most people, they can't. I know there are some people that say, oh, they can't stay without eating yam, or they can't stay without eating this cultural food. So staying in a place where those food stuff are accessible or are available would be better for some people, because I know some things like this can actually when you don't have a good living environment, an environment that's good for yourself, sometimes it might affect you mentally, or it can affect you emotionally. Focus on the first things I said before looking at the other things that are, just not really directly related to the applications for school. That's all I have on my list. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Norma, and I'm so glad that you have graced my channel with your presence. Please make sure to like this video if you got something, subscribe because it helps the channel, and leave a comment if you have any questions. You can watch any of my other videos or this video right here if you want to look into a little bit of how it looks like to school in Canada. So I hope that video helps you, and yeah, see you soon, or talk to you soon. Bye bye.